those are passive.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You know, the number of parking spaces that are over there. Oh, is that from last time?
time.
You can keep it. You can keep
No,
it.
that's okay.
Okay. So we are picking up on chapter 3, number 10, Mishnah 10.
I think we stopped at 9.
We stopped at 9, and now we're on 10. So now we are going to actually get down to business. Right after 2.5 chapters of Masechet Makkot, we are finally going to get to the Makkot, to the actual whipping, the blows that happen. If people are more interested in talking about the whipping and such, before we did a little bit of an intro from last week's episode, go back to that, where we tried to, pardon the expression, soften the blow for the concept of flogging. And you'll see that there are many more things that are meant to soften the blow as we go through this, but not to remove it altogether. All right, so shall we just bounce back and forth for taking turns reading?
Yes.
All right. Would you like to go first?
Yes, sir. How many lashes is he given? Okay, 40 say 1 as it says by number 40, which means a number close to 40.
All right.
That's not in Shabbat. The Shabbat we didn't have how many things is forbidden.
So it is-
forbidden is 1.
It's the exact same number, which is 39, but a different derivation, right? So we don't actually get an official derivation for the Melachot in Mishnah, but here they actually provide a midrash of why it is, right? And they say because it's near the number 40, b'mispar arba'im, right? And so they're saying that kind of weird language is telling you that you can whip up to a number almost like 40. Because what's a number near 40? 39. Right? Because we couldn't imagine going higher than 40 because the section is clearly talking about limiting the amount that you're being flogged. So it must mean that the maximum anybody could possibly ever be flogged is 39. 39.
So by coincidence, it's almost the same number as Melachot.
It would seem to be. It would seem to be by coincidence, yes. They don't make any official connection between the two numbers.
Because I thought that if I need to do a connection, sorry, okay,
Please.
is that because punishment Shabbat is one of the most higher of all the punishment. So if you have only 39 manachot that you can do, so it's one
blow per
blow
malacha.
for each makkah.
Yeah, but there's one problem with that,
Yeah,
which is what is the punishment for deliberate Shabbat desecration?
I thought it was 10.
Death. Not Makkot.
okay. What's the next theory for what?
It's a good theory, but the punishment is a little bit more. Now,
Okay.
Rabbi Yehuda has a slightly different read on this text, and he says, part B,
Rabbi Yehuda says he is given 40 lashes in full.
right? So, boom, those flashes. He says, no. When it says like the number 40, it means 40. That's your maximum. But that leaves one additional question, which is,
And where does he receive the additional lash? Between his shoulders.
so as we're going to see in the next section, the lashes were always divisible by 3 because you would do 1, 2, 3. And so if you say that it's going to be 40, you can't divide 40 evenly by 3. So where does that extra lash go? His argument is, boom, in the middle of the back rather than on either side. So we're going to get the structure of the lashing in the next Mishnah.
So 1, 2 always, and 3 in the middle.
Next Mishnah, we go into detail. Actually, is it the next Mishnah or the Mishnah after that? Hold on a second. I don't want to be caught in a lie.
I think you're right.
Yeah, we're actually not getting that for a little bit further. Oh, is Yerach here as well?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Everybody's clock works differently than mine.
So we are lucky.
That's no reason.
So the 39 is because in the Torah side.
Well, because it says in the number 40, which they take in the Midrash to mean at least one less than 40, which is 39. Now, that's the maximum number that you can be whipped for a crime. We're going to see that.
And the minimum is 3?
Nope.
You said
It has to be divisible by 3, but the minimum is not 3. We'll come back to that.
Sorry. Mathematics. The lower number is-
Stop being a math teacher. Was that Yarov?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Mishnah 11. We're going to get to how we do our estimate.
Okay.
It's your turn.
We only estimate for him growth which are divisible by 3.
All right. So that's what we just said. You have to be able to divide by 3. But hold on to that. We're going to come back.
If they estimate that he could receive 40 and he received some of the lashes, and they say that he's unable to receive 40, he's exempted.
All right. So what do we get here? We get a lot of very important points that just happened in that one
But
little
he said
sentence.
that no one received 40. So why now he says he's unable to receive 40? He's exempted.
So
If no one can receive 40.
the question is not how many lashes will he receive. The question is how strong is he? Right? So what we're finding in this particular section of the Mishnah is that when you are about to begin the blows, he has to be medically examined. Yarach? Yeah, I know.
All right.
Yeah. So before they do the lashing, they actually have to see. Now, it doesn't matter that his crime was worthy of, let's say, 30 lashes. If he can not take 30 lashes, he won't be lashed 30 times. But what we got here already off the bat is even trying to limit it more, which is saying, if we say, yeah, he's healthy, right? We do your physical examination, you're strong, you've got a good heart, you're not weak from hunger or something. And we say, yeah, he can take a full 39 lashes, right? He could take 40 if we were doing 40, no problem. And you get up there and we go whack, 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 and you start collapsing, and it looks like you're about to die. We don't say, yeah, but the crime says 39, keep going. We stop when the person has reached their physical limit, even if the crime demanded more. And even if we thought they could take more, right? As soon as it looks like it is getting dangerous, we're done. And conversely, yeah, no problem. Notes are good, because it's a very, very important point. As is the corollary in part A, the converse, the flip side. You see that we're on number 11, right, Yarach?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, for example, so if I understand correctly, if your punishment is 15, Makkot.
15, yeah, let's say.
Okay, and you are in 11 and you are collapsing, it's like a stock.
Yep. Even if you looked like you were healthy enough to have the 15 from the beginning, right? Because we're going to get the flip side of what happens if the person looks sick before you even start.
And they continue the other 4 right?
Nope. Done.
No, must be in one day.
Yep.
1 moment.
Exactly. They don't stagger it out.
Very good.
Unless, which is at the second half of this Mishnah.
Oh.
But for one crime, no, they don't. It's if you have multiple crimes that deserve lashing, there is a way to spread them out.
Okay. If they estimate that he could receive 18 and having been flogged, they say he could receive 40, he's exempted.
All right. So again, we're talking about the physical estimate here. Maybe the crime was worthy of 20, but they look at him and he just looks like, he's ill and his skin looks bad and he's hungry and he's, whatever is wrong with him. And they say, I know usually you get 20 for that, but he can only take 18. And they get up there and they start whipping and they get to 18 and the guy is like, yeah, I'm fine. They don't add any more. Right? They don't say, oh, good, let's do the extra ones, right? That if 18 is what he can take, then 18 is what they start with. And when they finish 18, they don't double check to see if he's healthy enough to take more. They stop with the initial estimate, which again, is very humane and very important, because if you didn't do that, then you would keep whipping someone until within an inch of their life, as we say in English, right? You would push and push and push. And as we're going to see, over-whipping is a big issue and a big problem. So they want to make sure that does not happen, because this is the punishment. The punishment is Makkot, right? Not mita, not death. If the crime that they committed was one that was a capital crime, they wouldn't whip them. They would just execute them. And that means if they die from the whipping, they have delivered the wrong punishment. And this is something that I'm trying to remember whether it was in Sanhedrin or a different section where we were talking about this, where the sages are very, very careful, because the Torah is very, very careful, that we only administer the punishment that we have the authority to administer. And just because the person is a criminal of this crime doesn't mean we can treat them however we feel like. We can only treat them within the bounds of the law, within the boundaries of the law, to the punishment that the Torah has actually said we have the authority to administer. And if we go beyond that authority, then we are now engaging in criminal behavior. We are breaking the commandments, even though, he's the criminal. Like, no, he's not the criminal. He's the person who needs to be punished. And the punishment is limited by the Torah. Make sense? Okay.
Is it the humanistic part of Judaism? That even though they made a mistake, you still want them to do Shabbat and come back and change it.
Well, if you think in our court, okay, maybe you do a parallelism, okay, someone maybe need to receive a 12 years in prison, but if the family depend on him and he needs to work to help them, you know what, just take only 4 because you need to go back to your home in order to help and don't see your family failing in poverty.
And sometimes we do have things like that for health reasons. If someone is dying of cancer, sometimes they will be allowed out of their prison sentence early and things like that. But the basic idea that a prisoner is still a human being and that the sentence to which they are sentenced, the punishment to which they are sentenced, cannot be added to or exacerbated. So let's go ahead and use the example of prison, right? What is the punishment of prison, right? What element of being in prison is punishment? What is the element of punishment, right? The element of punishment in Makkot is the pain.
Re-educate the person.
No, that's not the punishment of prison. Going to school is punishment?
Yeah.
And
if you ask the teacher, yes.
It's the loss of freedom.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's the punishment of prison, right? It's the loss of freedom. The reason you go to prison and why we call it punishment is because while you're in prison, you are not free to do what you want to do. You have to live where they tell you, you have to do what they tell you, and you're not allowed to go and see your family and friends and all of that.
If in theory the liberal school said that you're supposed to re-educate and learn and profession or be like a new person in order to give you a second opportunity in life.
So that is absolutely something that is an additional goal of prison. But the punishment of prison, the part of prison that is actually meant to make somebody pay for their crime, is the loss of freedom, right? And that's something that's very easy to get missed. I mean, as you saw, none of you, and it's not personal, but none of you really came up with immediately the idea that the main point of prison is loss of freedom. Some people focus all on rehabilitation. Some people focus all on taking bad people away so they can't hurt us during that time. But that's not really the core concept of prison. The core concept of prison is that you are being punished by having your liberty taken away from you. That is your punishment. Which means if there is a danger in a prison, for example, if the prison is very dangerous and the inmates fight each other all the time, and maybe you're going to get stabbed or beaten and all of that, that's not part of your punishment. Right? That should not be allowed to happen. You should only be kept from having your freedom. You should not be subjected to beatings and to torture and to harassment by either the guards or by the other prisoners. You can't say, hey, well, you're a criminal. No, I'm a criminal. My punishment is not having my freedom. My punishment is not being kicked in the head. Right? That was not what the judge said I was sentenced to have happen to me. And that is a very important part of looking at how we manage our prisons. Same thing where we say, this person's a prisoner, they deserve their punishment of their freedom taken away. Even if we would like to keep them away from society forever, if their crime doesn't justify that punishment, we can't stick them away forever just because we don't like them. Right? Even if we really, really don't like them. That isn't what our laws allow. Now, we can change the law and say that, yes, this crime is so bad, we will put you away forever. But the law has to say that, not our own emotions, not our own feelings. Now, many people have tried to take prison and say, look, you've only taken away their freedom, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have a better chance of avoiding punishment for crimes in the future. maybe we can use this time for something else. And that's where the reform, rehabilitation, and retraining programs have all come for prison. But they have had mixed success because we've never really committed fully to the idea that a prison was going to be a place for re-education, for retraining and going forward. Because we have all of these mixed ideas that prison is supposed to be about punishment, and they're supposed to suffer, and they're supposed to not be happy. And if I'm giving them an education, then am I just helping somebody for being? We are very conflicted in America, especially in America, about what we want from our prison system. That's one reason why whipping was so much easier, right? Because you whip the person and now they're back, and you're done. And if they've committed a capital crime and they've got the witnesses and the testimony lines up, then you execute them, right? It's very, very quick, very, very straightforward. And as we saw when we went through Sanhedrin, still very, very fair as far as how the cases were handled. There's a good argument to be made that we do need an alternative to the way we currently handle punishment, since at the moment in American law we only have two punishments that we can use. We can take away your freedom, or we can take away your money,
or your life.
Or your life-ish. I mean, capital crime executions are still very, very rare. They're not as common as they used to be in this country or in any other country. So yes, in many states it's still allowed, but in many other states, not so much. But looking at prison as being purely about punishment, and then deciding whether it is the best form of punishment for whatever crime the person committed, and then deciding how we can best make sure that the punishment only punishes what they did, rather than having all the other effects that can come from a prison system of depriving the person of their livelihood, depriving their family of their livelihood, putting a stain on their ability to re-enter into normal society, unable to have jobs afterwards, all those other issues. That seems to cause a knock-on effect more than just punishing for crime A, right? Someone stole this from that guy, that's fine, punish him, but the punishment should be for just what he did, not for everything else that then spills out over by having only one-size-fits-all punishment, which is our current prison system. So I'm not saying I know the answer of what should be the alternative, but I'm just saying we take for granted that this is the only way it works. One of the nice things about Makkot is it reminds us that there was a whole different system of how to punish people who committed crimes that were not capital crimes and that were not monetary crimes. And maybe we should think, not necessarily about bringing back flogging. I'm not necessarily a fan of that. I think in general it would still be open to many abuses. But having some other alternative other than just stick people in a room for use would probably help our society. All right, now we come back to
Less expensive also.
What?
Less expensive.
Oh, there's always the question of cost as well.
Logging system and how many cases are.
Well, yeah, there are many things that make our current criminal justice system very expensive, but then there are many people whose livelihood depends on our criminal justice system being very expensive. Moving on to part 3.
If he committed transgression including two provisions, and they made one estimate for him, he's flawed and it's exempted.
Okay, so what's talking about here? Well, in the Talmud, it explains this Mishnah in more detail, which is trying to say, let's imagine the person committed 2 of the crimes that were on our lists in the earlier Mishnayot. Right? They committed 2 of the crimes, and they say, okay, for crime A, he deserves 18 lashes. And for crime B, he deserves, let's say, 30 lashes, right? So all told, how many lashes? 48. If they estimate both of them together, they can whip him for the totality of them at once, which would be 48 lashes, if, again, he's healthy enough to take it and all of that. So you ask me, how can you go higher than 39? By doing 2 things that are worthy of being whipped, and the total of those lashes being worth more.
And they can give them the 48 in one.
Consecutively, right through, right? If, again, he is physically capable of taking it, or she. Remember, flogging wasn't only for men.
1 and 2?
Of course, we're going to find out about the difference between men and women. And
don't do any crime?
No.
No.
well, on average, the statistics
According to the last case.
on average the statistics do say that most women commit fewer crimes than men. on average.
Yeah, I agree to that.
Yeah. But women do commit crimes,
Yeah.
and they will be punished by flogging when it's appropriate.
Wow.
And like I said, we'll talk about that in more detail in just a second. So that's one side of what happens if you've got two crimes and they estimate them both as together. Then you do one lump sum flogging, again, if he's able to take it. Onward to part A.
But if not, he's flogged at the corpse and he's again flogged.
Okay. But if they don't estimate both of them at the same time, then they can estimate the one that was 18, flog him, let him heal up, and then estimate the next one for 30, flog him, and he's free to go.
But flogging after we recover.
After he recovers
Yeah.
in between,
Yeah.
right? So they can join them together if they estimate together, but if they don't estimate them at the same time, then they estimate them separately, then he heals in between, which could be worse or could be better. It kind of depends on the guy, right? Maybe, being flogged on 2 separate days is better. Maybe being flogged all at once is better. It depends. But they're trying to say here is that the estimate can push it higher. So that's one way that you can end up with a different numbering of system, because the estimate for each crime is meant to be divisible by 3. Okay. Makkot 12, Mishnah 12. I believe, Yerach, that you are up.
Yes.
Lucky me, sure. How do they lash you? His 2 hands are tied to a pillar on either side of it, and the minister of the synagogue grabs his clothing. If they are torn, they are torn. If they are ripped open, they are ripped open, until he exposes the offender's chest.
All right. So, you're wearing your tunic, and they take a pillar, and your hands are tied on either side of it. And then they have to open up your clothing so that your chest and your back are exposed.
Also for women.
Yes.
What about with the privacy?
So,
No, that's new. If they need to cover the hair,
yeah.
Okay, for
So-
nude, well, they will say, no, just open everything.
But they don't do it in the street. is
no,
it?
it's in the court.
In the court.
Right.
But anyway, they are other people than the family.
So in Sota, they talk about this when they talk about the death penalty, and they'd also talk about when the woman is brought up for Sota as a charge, that above the waist, they don't really care about during the criminal proceeding. Below the waist, they do. And there's a very interesting discussion about the different types of embarrassment below the waist for being exposed to the public. Below the waist?
Not the waist.
Yes. This waist. So, this part of the body contains embarrassing parts that should not be on public display. And this part, shouldn't be on public display in regular activities. You don't walk down the street to the grocery store with, your top off. But it wasn't considered to be a problem during the criminal process.
So it's a problem if you don't cover the hair, but it's not a problem if.
For punishment, not for just.
But punishment still, she will come back to the society
Yes.
after that. And is you embarrass the person
Mhm.
because people saw her private parts, no matter if it's
Alright.
happened.
Right.
Because
So,
it's not like if you say, okay, your career done.
right.
okay,
But
nothing
I think what we have here is a small distinction of what counts as a private part between
Okay.
Mishnaic times and modern times.
Okay.
Right. Modern Americans consider the female nipple to be almost the same level of private part as below the waist.
Okay.
They didn't. Right. They considered parts that were normally exposed and parts that normally were revealed. Right. Parts that were normally concealed or hidden, one word at a time. Right. So your arm, if you were in a society where normally the arm was covered, then doing that was considered revealing something you shouldn't reveal. That's what sniut is about. And similarly, if you were someplace where the arm was normally like this, then wearing clothes like this wasn't revealing anything at all. Going like that would reveal more. Same thing for length of skirts or trousers and those things. Sniut is very much about what is normal to be seen and what is not normal to be seen. That's why the laws of sniut vary from community to community. Now, in Mishnaic time, hair, the example you used, was always considered to be private. right? That was just the culture that they lived in, was that hair was something you didn't show to anyone except, your significant other. And therefore, that was something you were supposed to keep hidden as a way of concealing your hidden parts from the rest of the world. It wasn't because those parts were bad. It wasn't because those parts were inherently sexual, right? Like I said, one community says that this part's okay and that part's sexual, and one community says this is okay and that part's sexual, right? It's not inherently sexual, it's culturally. And the body, apart from the genitalia, was not considered to be sexual in and of itself. Is that making sense so far? Okay, so the rabbis were not concerned about exactly what was being shown or wasn't being shown inherently, right? A woman's breast was not inherently sexual. It was only because normally it was concealed that she should not go around showing the whole world. Not that for the case of a criminal investigation or a criminal punishment, that it couldn't be seen by other people. Right? That's just, it's going to be seen. And her back normally would not have been seen. Right? In those cultures, women didn't go around with low-cut backs. And so her back was also as hidden as her breasts. And therefore, revealing the back was the same as revealing the front in their communities. Below the waist, the reproductive organs, that was a different matter. Right? That was definitely considered to be always something that was sexual, no matter what your culture said. And so the rabbis always took a different view of that. And there's, like I said, there's a very interesting discussion in Sota about the difference between what can and can't be seen below the waist between men and women and things like that. But for this, this is just part of how the punishment works. It's not meant to be more embarrassing or less embarrassing. It's just, we've got to get to your skin to do the blows.
But by the moment you committed the crime, you basically gave away your rights.
You gave away your right to complain about the punishment. Exactly. You did not give away your rights.
Not rights.
Yeah.
Rights about complaining the punishment.
About this punishment, yeah. Exactly.
So you can't come, oh, my breasts are showing. No.
Well, any more than a man can say, I don't want anyone to see my naked back. I'm sorry, that is what the punishment is. Right? The same way that in the modern world, if someone said, well, I don't want to live in a prison because in the prison I don't have a separate bathroom. My bathroom is in my bedroom, and I don't like that. That makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm sorry, that is the way we have our punishment set up. And that's just what you're going to have to learn to live with.
I think that the court would have been very careful with that, especially for a woman. I think that they would have come up with a good way of
Nope. Nope. In Sota in particular, which I've studied the Talmud more of, they say if it exposes, it exposes. That is just what happens. Right? That's part of the process, and we're not going to deliberately do it, and we're not going to deliberately not do it. Right? That's why if you notice, it says here, if they're torn, they're torn. If they're ripped open, they're ripped open. It doesn't say rip it open. It doesn't say tear it open. It just says expose. Right? So if the guy's arms can slip inside his tunic, or the tunic can be untied and it falls open, that's fine. But if you've got to tear it open, then you tear it open. Or if you, as you're opening it up, it happens to tear open, you're not liable for the damages, right? Normally, if I walk down the street and I grab your shirt and I pull it and I tear it, I have to pay you for the damages I did. This, it's saying, no, you don't have to. But also that you shouldn't try to, right? That shouldn't be your goal. It's not part of the punishment to tear the clothing. It's just part of the process to expose front and back, and if tearing happens, so be it.
When it came to lashes, when it came to the whip,
yes.
Was there a specific type of whip? I mean, did it have?
That is the next whip. Next one. No, we've got 2 more. Yeah, we're almost there.
Okay.
So the whip is designated, as is the position of the whipper and how he whips. All of that is in the Mishnah.
Is the whipper only a man, or sometimes?
Yes, he was a functionary of the court. Yeah. All right. So where were we? Tied. Okay. B.
And the stone is placed behind the offender. The minister of the synagogue stands on it. A strap of cowhide in his hands, doubled over into 2, and doubled, and 2 straps that rise and fall attached to it.
Okay, so the cowhide is the main form of the whip. The 2 additional straps, according to the Talmud, were actually made from a donkey hide, which was thinner than a cow's. And the stone is so that, let me see if I can do this without hurting myself, was that so when you were whipping, you would be coming down across the person. So your full power would be on the whip for the whipping. That's why they have the stone for the guy to stand on.
So you stand over because
the whipper stands on a stone,
okay.
and the person who's tied up stands in front of them. That way, when I whip, I'm whipping with the full swing. Right? If I'm just standing here, then when I whip, my swing is stopping when I get to their body. Whereas if I'm standing, then it's the full arc. Well,
It's a good whip.
Oh yeah, this is not like, you know, your parents spanking you by going. This is meant to be a full arc, full strength.
So it's in like the movies that you see blood, maybe.
Oh, absolutely. This absolutely has the capacity to tear open the skin, which is why they need a medical examination, both before they begin and during, to make sure that the person doesn't like begin to die. At which point, whoa, we got to stop. All right, I think we're on 13.
The handle is a handbreadth long and a handbreadth wide. It's reaching to the edge of the offender's abdomen.
Right, so they need to figure out how big is this, because different length handles will make a different leverage for the blow. So that standardized length, so that everyone's receiving the same blows, and a standardized distance, so that when you hold it out to the person's back, it's, you know, to their abdomen, you're the right distance away from them. So if you stand too close or if you stand too far, it changes the power of the blow. So this is all regulated so that it has to come at exactly the right way. Well, I mean, otherwise you have, you know, the nice guy that everybody loves, he's going to be flogged, and it's like, oh, you know, just, you know, giving a light little tap on the back, and no, that's not fair. It has to be consistent. If the rabbis had robots, I think they would have had a robot doing this, you know, just have a machine that brings the blow down. Not really, because the rabbis very much believed in humans, but they wanted to make this as generic as possible, right? Consistent, exactly. Onward.
He administers 1/3 of the lashes in front and 2/3 behind. Oh, wow.
All right, that means that 1/3 of the lashes are coming across the chest.
So he need to go around.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So there's 2 stones, one in front and one behind. Because if you are like that and the guy is behind you on the stone, how can he give you the lashes in the front? He need to walk around and be in front of you. So you need 2 stones, one in the front and one behind.
Where he's standing.
It's a good question. I've never seen a particular picture of this.
Well,
So.
is there because there's a way that you can whip and get the front, you know, because some people get the skin out when
Yeah, but you can by mistake go to the face.
to the face. Yeah.
And the face wasn't part of the punishment.
Exactly right.
That's interesting.
Onward. A.
He lashes him not in a standing or sitting position, but stooping. As it says, and the judge shall cause him to fall stoop down.
Right, so the guy who's being whipped, he's not sitting down, and he's also not standing up perfectly. He has to be sort of bent over for the lashing to take place. And last one.
He who administers lashes with his one hand and with his whole force.
Right, so one hand, so it's not your like massive baseball bat swing, but it is with your full force when you do the swing. So it's not as bad as it could be, but it's also consistently the full strength.
Only the working. He's here, and after that, go back, so he is receiving the front.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, you can also turn the person, yeah.
You can turn the person,
Yeah.
that's it.
All right.
You like the details, huh?
Well, I mean, it's important to see that the rabbis...
Administering
Yeah.
the lashes.
You like this
I
job?
with my candidate.
So it's important to remember that you're not allowed to be a judge of one. You can't decide someone needs it by yourself. All right.
What if the person, like after you're doing 40 lashes, your hand can be exhausted? Do they switch over to another person? Or they
Not
have
that
to
I
stay
remember seeing.
With one,
No.
right? Okay.
All right, 314, I believe, Natan?
Yes. And the reader reads, if you will not observe to do, etc., then the Lord will make your blows wonderful.
Extraordinary, large, right? So what's happening here is while you're being whipped, they're reading out psukim, verses from the Torah, Tanakh. And so these are the statements which are basically a reminder. And as you'll see, there are 3 verses, right? So if you fail to observe, you will have Makkot, you will have these blows, which is sort of a reminder of the only reason you're being whipped is because you broke the law. Next one.
And he returns to the beginning of the passage. Observe therefore the words of his covenant.
Mm-hmm.
And he concludes with, but he, being full of compassion, forgives
iniquity, sins. Right? So at the end, they finish off with a line from Psalms that although you're getting blows, remember, God forgives the sins that you've done. So yes, you deserve this for the crime you did, not because you're a criminal, but you did a crime. But remember, God forgives sin. God is compassionate. God is merciful.
That's kind of cool that they're, reminding of the Torah so that person.
I'm not entirely sure how much that makes the person appreciate the experience.
Yeah.
But it does.
But they won't forget.
But it reminds the court of what it's doing.
Yeah, I think it's more for the social. Say, you know what, this guy will come back to society and you need to receive it as that it happened because God
We're going to come back to that topic a little bit further on, but the idea that once the punishment has been meted out, you're done, right? You broke the law, you were found guilty, you were punished, and you presumably did tshuva, you sought forgiveness from God as well. We're done, right? That has been wiped off the board. It's like when you pay a credit card bill. Once you've paid it, it's gone, right? Once you've paid your debt is erased.
Yeah.
And that is
you are allowed to vote as any other citizen.
That is part of Jewish law. Well, we didn't actually have voting democracy, but the idea that I know. But once you have actually paid the price, once you have been punished according to what the law said, you're done. And I don't mean that just societally. I mean in terms of the spirituality for your nefesh, right? When we talk about the afterlife and all of that, what Judaism is talking about is that if you have committed a crime for which you weren't punished and for which you didn't do tshuva, then there is some form of balancing of the scales. But if you committed a crime and you got caught and you were sad and regretted it and they punished you, when you die, you don't get punished again. It was already done, right? You paid your price in this life, or you get the balance paid up in the next life. Again, credit card bills are kind of a good reminder of, you either pay it now or you pay it later, but eventually you're going to pay it. And once you've paid it, you don't have to pay it again. And once you've paid it, it's not held against you anymore. You're not the guy who paid, the price of being flogged. You're just Joe Schmo again.
So they were allowed also to be any position, to be also rabbi, to do anything they want.
Absolutely.
After punishment.
Yes, I mean, whether or not the society would like to accept you or not, but legally, yes. Right? Legally, if people would commit crimes, sometimes, just they had a bad day and they would do something that was wrong. And as you saw, many of the things for the Makkot were not like the most serious crimes ever of, oh, this person is evil because they had a donkey and a cow together on their plow. I mean, that's not like, they don't make movies about master criminals doing that. That's they thought, man, I need to finish the plow before I'm done. And I've only got my donkey because the other ox is sick. You know what? I'll just do it today. Okay, boom, you're going to get whipped, but that doesn't mean you're a bad person. And once you've been whipped, it definitely doesn't mean you're a bad person. Now, Judaism is kind of big on forgiveness once we've actually got the punishment out of the way. Okay. However,
if he should die under his hand, he's exempt.
All right, so pronouns are annoying. If the criminal should die while being whipped, the person whipping him is not guilty of murder.
What about the doctor that was checking?
Nope. They made a mistake. Now, if you can find proof that the doctor deliberately overestimated how many blows he could survive in order that the guy would die, then yeah, that's criminal. But if I'm an honest doctor and I say, honestly, he can take 21, and the guy starts whipping and he dies at 10, It's not the whipper's fault, and it's not the doctor's fault. It's no one's fault. It happened. It was a tragedy, and it wasn't what was supposed to happen. However,
if he added one more lash and he died, he's to be exiled because of him. So means one, he think that okay, he cannot be more and say no, I changed my mind. Maybe he can receive one more.
think more losing count, right? Imagine I'm supposed to whip the person 39 times.
Okay.
And I go 38, 38, 39. And on that last blow, which is actually number 40, the guy dies, then I am guilty of manslaughter. And I'm not guilty of murder. I'm guilty of manslaughter.
But there wasn't, beside the one that whips the person, there was other people that may be supposed to count.
Absolutely, but the person who actually whips one more than necessary is the person who actually caused the death, right?
And that's why he's excited because it's an intentional.
Exactly, like we studied before, that this is an accidental case of manslaughter, and so he goes to one of the cities of exile, right? Because he's not a first-degree murderer. He didn't wake up that morning saying, "Oh, I'm going to whip him to death." He just went one beyond. Now, if he does whip him to death, the guy is supposed to have, 6 blows, and he hits 6, and he's like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and kills the guy before they can stop him. Then we're getting into murder territory. Okay. Now we get to remind ourselves that there are both men and women, and bad things can happen while all this is happening.
Okay, we didn't finish 4.
No, we didn't do 4. That's what I mean. Yeah.
If he
Befouled.
befouled.
If his body releases the waste, so you urinate or you defecate.
So whether he's excrement or urine, he is exempt.
Right? So you're whipping the guy while he's being whipped, and the pain is him to lose what's in his guts. We're done.
Who's
Right?
exempt?
The
Criminal.
The criminal. We undo his hands and off he goes.
Why?
Because it's humiliating. Because it is like the ultimate debasement. Remember, one of the statements that's used in the Torah about why we have a limit for how much we whip them is because we shouldn't debase another human beings in our eyes. Right? We're not allowed to excessively humiliate them. And that's why there's an upper limit on what we can do. Yes, some of the things we do are going to be embarrassing. No one wants to be exposed. No one wants to be flogged. It's embarrassing to have been caught. No one likes to be caught. But this shoots beyond the embarrassment. Right?
So if you're a criminal, you will try to push to urine for sure.
Again, hold on. Remember, we're not talking about like somebody who is a bandit here that murders people and steals their money. They have a whole different penalty. We're talking about people that we read about in the early section of this Mishnah. These are what we would probably call misdemeanors or minor felonies at the best. If someone stole $500 from you, they can't go up there and now they don't have to pay you back. If they stole $500, they're going to be punished by forced to repay, right? So it only can be understood within the whole context of criminal justice and which things are allowed to be punished by Makkot. So it's not like it's a great strategy. Being flogged in the first place is bad. Being forced to, in front of all the court, that is just, it's horrible. I can only imagine what kind of shame that would bring. Unlike some of the other Mediterranean cultures, we didn't really believe in group bowel emptying. The Romans, absolutely. What is it? Beit She'an, I believe, up in the north in Israel. They have in the Roman city there, they have like the bathroom room, and it's like a whole series of stone seats with holes. And you would just go in there and you'd sit down and you'd do your business, and the next guy would be sitting right next to you, and you'd have a little conversation while you were taking care of nature. That was just what you did. That was all over the Roman Empire. It was, yeah. Who ever heard of a private stall, right? Who needs a privacy when they're doing this? It's just let loose. we weren't so much in the public let loose compartment.
Thank God.
However, that may seem a little uneven because there is a slight difference. And most men, I would imagine, have been in places where, you're out hiking with the guys and urinate, you're just going out along the side of the trail, right? Many places to this day, the urinals are not private for men, right? There are many places where it's just like a long wall with a water trough at the bottom, and you just all stand up there and, you're in a line.
You told me that there was a place in Europe that they went there after they were there, all the people after the game.
Mm-hmm.
The most normal is that urinate there.
Yeah, in the street. Yeah,
in the street.
Yeah, there are places in Europe that struggle with public urination. Yeah,
and people like think that's normal possible. The woman pass, no one look because no one the most normal thing. Someone told me.
Yeah, no, I mean France has just recently put out like a new solution of actually putting basically little bathrooms everywhere to try and at least make people go in that rather than just anywhere in the street, on the sidewalk, and everywhere else. So yeah, it's a real issue still in Europe, and that means there's another question, which is, as you mentioned, okay, come on, wait. So you committed a crime, and are you really going to be embarrassed just going, urinating? You do that in front of your buddies all the time. So that brings us to Rabbi Judah's opinion.
A man with excrement and a woman with urine.
Right.
And he lost. Right? But his opinion was men and urination happens in front of other men all the time, right? So that should not be so embarrassing that we cancel the rest of the punishment. But who are you to tell me what's humiliating for me? Right? Losing control of my bowels, you can tell me that's not humiliating because you do it all the time? Let me ask you right now, if you were to suddenly go to the bathroom in that chair, right? All of a sudden you lost control. Maybe, I don't know, there's like, you had a sudden surprise, a dinosaur came to the window and you went, and, you made a big puddle on the floor. You wouldn't be more embarrassed for that than you would be if you were just standing with a bunch of guys out in the forest? No, but
it's different.
I take a different perspective from Rabbi Yehuda. I don't know what was his logic behind. If it was humiliating or that you can make yourself in order to finish fast the punishment. Like for us, urinate is not so difficult to induce. So you can make yourself to urine faster so you can stop now the lashes. So maybe that's the reason why he said, are men just excellent.
And women can't?
I don't know, I'm a man. I
don't know.
I've never asked men.
No, but you are a mammal, right? The basic equipment for urination is the same, right? Bladder, urethra. I mean that's the same in everything. The fitting for the output is different, but the internal equipment is the same. Okay. So men and women both have the capacity to urinate when they need to, or not when they don't want to. And roughly equal capacity as far as I've ever heard or seen. So if Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is just about men can let themselves urinate more easily, I don't know that would stand up. I think it really is about embarrassment. And like I said, in Sota, where I've read before, there's a discussion of what's more or less worse for men or women, right? Would a woman rather feel more pain and less embarrassment? Or would she rather feel more embarrassment and less pain? And that's a big argument in Sota of how it goes. And there's arguments on both sides. But here, what they're basically trying to talk about is how much the humiliation affects what's going on. And Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is most men would not be that humiliated by urinating because probably we do it all the time in front of other people. And the rest of the sages, I believe, push back because, that may be under controlled circumstances. I've got no problem, using a public restroom where, there's 10 of us standing in a row using the urinal. But that's a big difference between that and being in front of everyone while being whipped and losing control of my body, right? Or even deliberately doing it. It's still a very different spectacle than the other. Anyway, I really want to finish tonight because we've only got 2 more Mishnayot to go, and one's a little long, one's not so bad. All right, you're up. Mishnah 15. You get the long one tonight.
All who have incurred the penalty of karet on being flogged are exempt from the punishment of karet.
All right, so we brought this up before, that there are certain things that are punishable by karet, and if you are subject to karet, but the court is able to prove that you've actually committed the crime for which karet would be the punishment, when you are flogged by the court, which the court will do, you are now no longer subject to karet. Does that make sense? Okay, so karet was the bigger punishment, right? Which is basically heaven can kill you. You have forfeited your life in the eyes of heaven. If the court has caught you and they can punish you with Makkot, when they're done punishing you, that goes away, right? That goes away. You only get one punishment for one crime. And even though the punishment of karet is more severe, the earthly punishment is able to erase that.
That's a very good subject. The human is very big. He said, hey, you know what? We will be over God, so we will do now the punishment here, so we will not cover enough the bad.
But let's take a look at why they believe this. What's their textual proof? Yara, can you read the quote? Ford says, the brackets. He may be given.
Brackets, yeah. He may be given up to 40 lashes, but not more, lest your brother should be dishonored before your eyes. Deuteronomy 25.
And explain.
Once he has been lashed, he's considered your brother. The words of Rabbi Hanina ben Gamliel. Right.
So Rabbi Hanania is basically saying, look at the verse, right? You flog him only up to this, lest your brother, right? Because once he's been flogged, he is your brother again. What does karet literally mean? To be cut off from one's people, right? And this is using the phrase of being connected to the people. So that means after the flogging has happened, God has already told us he's your brother again, meaning karet no longer applies. But also, as we've talked about societally, once someone has been flogged, they are your brother again. They are not forever stained by that crime. They are part of the family once more. They may mess it up again, but right now they're okay. All right. Two.
Rabbi Hanania ben Gamliel said, just as one transgresses one transgression, for faith is life. Now, how much more does one who performs one commandment have his life granted?
Right. So this is him being a little philosophical. And he's saying, look, we've been reading throughout Sanhedrin about all of these problems and punishments and things. And yeah, when you commit a crime, you have basically saying, if God wants to punish me for this, that's okay. Because that's what doing the crime means. You're ready for the punishment. But you should also look at the flip side, he says, which is every time you do a commandment, right? Every time you do something that God has asked or avoid doing something that God has told you to avoid, you are gaining life, right? There is a benefit. It's not only do what's right or you'll be punished. It's do what's right, you won't be punished, and you will gain, right? It's not that there's only punishment. There is also reward, which is important to remember as we're talking about all of the punishments in this section of the Mishnah. Good? 3.
Rabbi Shimon said, you can learn this from its own passage, as it says, all who do any of those abhorrent things, such persons should be cut off from their people. Leviticus 18:29. And it says, you should keep my statutes,
my laws.
Yeah, and my ordinances,
Chukim u'mishpatim.
Which if a man do, he shall live by them. Leviticus 18:5. And which means that one who desists from transgressing is granting reward like one who performs a precept. Precept is a mitzvah.
Yeah, exactly. So what's Rabbi Shimon trying to say here is, in the first verse, right, it's saying that you shouldn't do the acts of these other people that we find in Vayikra, in this passage of Leviticus. And in the second act, it's saying, but do my acts and you will live by them. And what he's trying to say is because these are sort of like bookends, they sort of link it all together. It's like saying not doing the bad stuff is the same as doing the good stuff. And that means that by just avoiding the transgressions, you are also living, you are gaining life through God's commandments. Right? So there is reward just for not murdering people. You might think that there's only reward for doing something positive, but there's reward even if you just avoid stealing. Right? You would think that like not stealing is just neutral, but no, what he's trying to argue here is not stealing is actually not just a mitzvah and a commandment, but it's a mitzvah as a benefit. Right? The Yiddish term for mitzvah, which is, it's a positive thing, not only just zero negative, not negative, not positive. It's not doing bad is actually doing good, which is a very powerful ethical statement.
It fits the Pirkei Avot that says, "Who is a hero?
Mhm.
One who able to
Conquers his urge,
Yeah.
right? Exactly.
urge."
And that it's just such a powerful statement that it's not only about being a great person because you have fought wars and you have conquered hunger or you have done massive, amazing philanthropy. Being a hero, being a soldier, for the mitzvot can sometimes just mean not doing all the horrible thing that you could do.
Yeah.
Right? Every time you want to, punch someone who's annoying you and you don't punch them, hooray, right? That's not just being decent. You're actually doing positive good by not doing negative bad.
Sometimes it feels like it's such a waste to not do it. Sometimes it reminds you.
And remember this section.
Wow, it feels so good. So I do a lot of positive good.
Yes, I
every
do
day.
too.
Oh my God.
Of course you do, but that's the thing. Is that sometimes it's very easy. I just started watching this show called The Good Place. I don't know if you've seen it. It's on Netflix now. It's really hilarious and philosophical.
The good place.
The Good Place. It's about somebody who goes to heaven, right? And they find out that every action on earth has a positive or a negative score. And then they add them all up, and only the best of the best of the best get to go to the good place. Everyone else is tortured forever, right? But it's funny. It's a comedy.
Okay.
And
For rabbis or for regular people?
my family likes it.
They count your genes.
That is true. But it is a very popular show. Not just, but and it's also quite short. There's only like 12 episodes in the first season. So one of the problems in this, but the main character argues about, is to get really into the good place, you have to have cured cancer or fought world hunger or donated $5 billion. It's like a huge, threshold of like 1 million points and stuff that you have to do. And most people just aren't doing that. And she's always saying there should be a medium place, right? For people that aren't murderers, but also the people who aren't like saints. There should be a medium place. And what the Mishnah basically is saying is, no. You don't understand. You actually get points by not doing bad. It's not only negative points for bad things. It's not doing bad stuff gives you positive points. And that is a very important reminder to people that you are still being an adherent to Torah, and you are still gaining right in the sight of God by avoiding what's wrong. That's not just the minimum. You are actually gaining spiritually from that, which is one of the great lessons of Torah, is that we don't only benefit from choosing right, we also benefit from avoiding wrong. And sometimes avoiding wrong is the best we can do, right? We don't have an option for doing something great and right. Sometimes all we can do is just not do something bad. And that is still shaping our soul in the right direction.
That's very powerful.
I know.
That's very powerful.
No, it's pretty that I never heard this, for example, in the Yamin Noraim. And because that would be a great topic for a theme for Yamin Noraim.
And for the kids, if you think about it, that is so like the foundation.
No, yeah, in the school, explain to the kids in school. But they say, well, I never did anything good. They say, yes, you do. Every day when I avoid doing all the to take all the potential of bad thing that the decision you can take every day.
Right.
Or especially not reacting in your own, I want to do this, but you choose not to.
Mm-hmm.
You choose peace instead of fighting.
It's all over the Torah and rabbinic teaching. It's just pop culture is more like the good place, where we somehow think that the only really good people are these saint people, and that the rest of us, we're not really worthy. And it's like, no, that's not the way it works. And that's also because we tend to misunderstand what our soul is doing through life, that our soul is learning and growing by our choices, not only our choices to be saints, but our choices not to be demons. And that those are equally important to cultivating our soul. All right, we really got to finish this up. Number 4.
Rabbi Shimon Bar Rabbi says, behold, the Torah says, but make sure that you do not partake of the blood, for the blood is the life, and you must not consume the life with the flesh, that it may go well with you and with your descendants to come. Deuteronomy 12:23 to 25. Now, if in this case of blood, which a person's soul loathes, anyone who refrains from it receives reward.
Right. So what's his position? Well, he's never been to England where they like blood pudding. What he's trying to say is most people, when they see blood, they go, right? I don't want to eat that. And what he's saying is God tells you don't eat the blood. And when you don't eat the blood, it'll go well for you. God's giving us a reward for not doing something we don't want to do. So how great is that? That's like free reward, right? It'd be like, God telling me don't go swimming in the sewer. Okay, no problem. I can handle that mitzvah easy. And that's what he is trying to argue here, is that, when God told us not to eat blood, that's kind of an easy one, God. Thanks for giving us an easy one. So if we are able to refrain from that, then onward.
How much more so in regard to robbery and sexual sin, for which a person's soul craves and longs, shall one who refrain from them acquire merit for himself and for generations and generations to come, to the end of all generations.
Right. So what he's basically trying to say is, if God is willing to reward you powerfully for not doing something you don't want to do, God will reward you even more powerfully for not doing something you do want to do. So the reward for controlling yourself, to keeping yourself from doing these horrible things, even if you really, really want to, is a lot more than you think, right? You're not only rewarded for the good you do, you're also rewarded for the bad you don't do. Choose not to do, I should point out, right? It's not just, because I never started nuclear war, I get a reward. I didn't have the capacity to start nuclear war. I didn't have a choice to start nuclear war. It's the actual moments that I have in my life where I choose not to do bad. That's what I'm being rewarded for. Good. All right. You got to just hit 16 and then we're done.
Rabbi
Hananiah
ben Akashia says the Holy Blessed One desired to make Israel worthy. Therefore, he gave them much Torah to study and many commandments to perform. For it says, the Lord desires his servants' vindication, that he may magnify and glorify his teaching.
All right. So, like I said, we've been going through this whole section, and there are many people who say that Makkot used to be part of Sanhedrin as well, as there's one Masechet in the beginning. All about punishment, all about crime, all about bad stuff happening. And you might think, well, you know what? Couldn't God have maybe not made so many rules, right? If there weren't so many rules, people wouldn't be breaking the law. And what this final teaching is trying to tell us is that no, all of those rules give us more opportunity to actually excel, right? If we didn't have as many rules, then when would we have the chance for our spirit to sing and grow in this amazing way? If the only rules were, don't murder people and don't steal stuff, most of our day we would not spend thinking, what is the right way to live? And that would leave us with a very impoverished soul, with a very weak spirit. But thankfully, at least that's the way he's trying to put it, thankfully, God gave us a whole load of commandments. And that means we are constantly given the opportunity to make these choices. And every time we do that, it is strengthening our soul when we do it the right way. And that gives us this great benefit that we would miss if we didn't have so many rules that were there. They're not meant to be stumbling blocks. They're meant to be stairs. And you need lots of them to get higher, right? If you've only got 2 steps, then you only go up 2 steps. If you've got 1,000 steps, you can get a lot higher. And They're not meant to trip you up, they're meant to lift you up. And with that, we say goodbye to Masechet Makkot.
The next one is.
Hold on a second, let me hit the recording and then we'll discuss.
This is an excellent lesson, Rabbi.
Oh, now you know I wanted to make sure that people were here.
Excellent.